All right, for those of you who have just joined, if you can drop in the chat just your name, if you're a student, what you're studying, if you're staff, what department and what your title, and then for those of you who are working on projects, which ones. So I'll read back on these real quick. We've got a great list of folks in the room. Thank you, Sharon Roberson, assistant to the city manager, who also serves as our liaison with the city of Peoria, helping to make the magic happen on their side of the partnership. Ann Richmond, our director here at Sustainable Cities Network. Thanks for joining. We have Kathy Colbath, the transit manager with the city of Peoria. Allison Almond, my right hand, our program assistant for Project Cities. We have Sam Dent, program assistant with Sustainable Cities Network. Thank you, Jay. Jay Davies is with us here, interim public works director, associated with both transit and recycling awareness projects, as well as the recycling solutions project. So just a few hats there. We have Jeff Tyne, city manager for City of Peoria. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have Greg Broberg, ASU School of Social Transformation, fabulous return faculty working with the communication folks related to media use by marginalized folks or that hard to reach population. We have Nicholas Jacobs, ASU Environmental Resource Management, working on the e-waste recycling project. And thank you, Eric Strunk, Deputy City Manager, for joining us as well. Oh, and I just lost my place in the list. Wonderful. Jonathan Gutierrez, ASU ERM, working on the e-waste recycling project. Thank you for joining us. LaDon Haglund, so glad you could make it. Faculty with Justice and Social Inquiry, working with Greg Broberg's project to pilot some new outreach methods. Gilbert Elizondo, Environmental Research Management, working on the biogas project. A few notes that I'm muted. Sophia Schroeder, graduate student working on the Dark Sky project, studying global sustainability science. Christina Perez, thank you so much for joining us today, City of Peoria Marketing and Communications Manager. We'll be working on the engagement project, and also I'm hoping, Christina, that we can borrow your expertise for a couple of the projects that are working on messaging this semester as well.
Sure.
Awesome. Love having you on board. We have Asha Bora, student with the Environmental Resource Managing Project, also working on the e-waste project. Devin Glanz with ASU MUEP program, fabulous. Love that program, working with Dr. Chetri on the Dark Sky Ordinance project. Wonderful, I'm so glad we could have so many of you join us here today. Allison just dropped in the chat the event guide. I'm gonna recommend everyone download that event guide and just keep it open on the side. It's a handy PDF that has all those reference links, and I have to let you know there's a chance that our agenda will shift a little bit today. We may actually end up sticking to that. I'm going to shoot some chats real quickly on the side. Sharon J, watch out for my notes here. But I will real quickly pause our music here because now I'm just talking over it. So folks, we'll go ahead and get things started here. My name is Steve Russell. I'm the program manager for the ASU Project Cities program. And I am so pleased that you all could join us here today for our virtual Peoria kickoff event for the fall 21 semester. It's another weird semester, but you know what? We're here and we've got some great projects lined up for you all. And we've got some great folks on the line to help us make that happen. So today's event is going to feature, we're going to have some opening remarks, and then we may have a trivia game set up for you as well, and we'll close out with that leadership panel with folks on the line. Really, we have some folks that we're going to feature prominently, but everyone's welcome to contribute to that. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions ahead of time. We have those all queued up for our leaders here today. Some quick housekeeping. Apologies, folks, not feeling too great. If you can please keep your mic muted when you're not speaking, and I will periodically turn people's mics and videos on and off. If you see that happen, just know I did it for the purposes of our recording here. As a lot of students were unavailable for today's event, we are recording this as well, and we'll edit it and stick it up on our YouTube channel for anyone who was unable to attend. But I'm so glad that you could all join us here and ask your questions live. Now, if you have a question throughout the course of the event, please don't hesitate to raise your hand, or you can drop it in that chat box at the bottom. Allison Almond, who is our standing by as one of our moderators today, hi Allison, is going to be watching that chat. So if there's anything that we don't catch, she can make sure and flag it for us. This, things are more interesting when we're more engaged. And I would encourage anyone who has a question, when you ask it, go ahead and flip on that video and camera and mic, because it's always just a little bit more interesting, engaging when we can have a direct conversation. All right, I'm getting word we are gonna end up skipping the Peoria trivia today, just due to circumstances. So we will open up with Jeff Tynes' remarks and then move straight into our leadership panel. But before we get there, I'd like to hand it over to my supervisor, Ann Richmond, who is the director of the Sustainable Cities Network. She's been with ASU for over a decade now and actually began the Sustainable Cities Network program here. She also kickstarted our Epic End program, Project Cities, the one that you all are participating with here today. She's going to kick us off with just a few words about the program. Ann?
Sure. Thanks, Steve. And welcome, everybody. It's so great to see you. I wish we could be there in person. So hopefully at some point, maybe we can make that happen. But on behalf of ASU's Sustainable Cities Network and Project Cities program, I want to first express my gratitude and thanks for the city of Peoria being our partner this year. Wow, 3 years. We're very excited about that and have been so, just impressed with your city staff, but also the caliber of your projects and the work that has been done by the students. So we're very excited about this fall semester. For those of you as students and even as city staff, if you're not as familiar with Project Cities, certainly our goal is kind of twofold. We aim to improve the quality of life for the local residents of the communities that we're serving. This is cross-disciplinary collaboration and research-backed solutions, because our problems local are certainly very complex. And so it requires a lot of different disciplines. And when I say disciplines, I mean different majors and different ways of looking at problems. And so we like to encourage all students to get involved in these type of projects. Also, it's aiding in certainly our ASU's learning experiences, and we want to give them some real world applications. So when they graduate, they can go out and work for wonderful communities like Peoria and be able to really apply what they've learned, make a sustainability difference, I think, in the world. So we see this as a win-win partnership. And so we're certainly very excited this semester to work with you all. Project Cities is now starting its 5th year, 3 of which have been with Peoria. And we're certainly looking forward to a very successful semester. I look forward to getting to know the students in the various classes, and then also various new city staff that we have on board with some of our projects. I know I haven't met everybody, so looking forward to getting to know you and the projects, in more detail. So with that, I will go ahead and minimize my comments. One last thing, though, I would like to put a hands out, like a, the virtual clapping applause to Steve and his great team with Project Cities. So we've got Lindsay and we've got Allison, there's Sam and Kate as well that might be in the background. Just thank you for all your preparation and support. I know Steve's a little bit under the weather today, so thanks for, taking one for the team and pushing through. So very much appreciated. But with that, I will, turn it over to Jeff, and he can do the opening remarks for the city of Peoria. So Jeff, welcome. It's great to see you.
Oh, great to be here. And thank you so much again, Stephen and Ann. This is, as you can guess, the city of Peoria loves working with all of you. This is not only a chance for us to move the needle on quality of life in our community, but to work with such amazing faculty, grad students on these projects. It is something that inspires us. And hence you can see every single time that we have these meetings, you have more and more of us that want to be on this. So just a reflection of how much this means to your organization and this community. And so that's why you're seeing time and again, whenever the call is out there, you're going to see Peoria eager to work with you all. This is just so exciting for us. And we hope that that's what all of you see as you go through this fall semester on that. So again, just for background, my name is Jeff Tyne, and I'm the city manager here. And in local government in Arizona, what that means is I serve somewhat as the chief executive officer, running more of the day-to-day operations. But really what matters is that I am working for a city council that's like my board of directors, that they are the ones that set the vision of what we want to be as a community. And that's the hard part, is really trying to move the needle on quality of life in a way that really draws into what is changing in society and what are aspects that we can see to ensure that we're going to sustain ourselves for future generations. It's that kind of thinking that we really need to incorporate, and rather than get caught in just the day-to-day operations, and why we like to work with all of you, because you can help make that a reality. The reality is that in the city of Peoria, we get busy. We get busy on kind of how we look at recycling and water conservation, transit. And so it's important for us to get outside ideas and to partner and to really challenge us in a positive way on some of these issues. And those are areas where all of you have added value and have inspired our city council and our mayor as we go through that. So thank you so much for offering these fresh perspectives as we go forward on that. So as the fall semester moves forward for you, if ever there's any questions or comments, we love hearing that. But also if you see that there is an interest in what we're doing, because I think you'll find as you talk to your city of Peoria staff, is that we love the business we're in, because we are making a mark in our community. And to be able to go home at the end of the day and say, you know, in this day and age, to see that you're doing something like that it's very helpful, reassuring, and meaningful. And so we do urge you, if you have any interest in the myriad of different functions and duties that you see in a city, please don't hesitate to reach out. We are very eager to work with those folks, especially here at ASU, because I am, after all, a Sun Devil. So thank you again for your vital partnership. I wanted to also make a shout out specifically to Stephen. I'm sorry that you're not feeling well. We are looking to reach out and acknowledge his amazing work and our partnerships that we've had. Knowing that there's other opportunities for Stephen, we just didn't want to lose that chance to say thank you for everything that you've done for us. So thank you for that. That's all of my prepared remarks.
Thank you for that, Jeff. It has been such a pleasure working with this community. Students, you're really going to love this semester. The Peoria team has always been just so dialed in and so ready to help you not only be successful in your projects, but also, as Jeff alluded, in your long-term careers as well. I want to thank you, Jeff, for taking a moment to address the group. That gave me the time to do some quick chat magic with one Jay Davies, who has indicated that he does have the Peoria trivia on standby for us. And it looks like we do have enough folks in the room to do it. So I think we should just do it. It's going to be fun. Jay, if you are ready, why don't you go ahead and flip on that video. I'm going to make you a co-host so that you can share screen. And just when you do, make sure and click that share sound button. So we're going to do a quick round of Peoria trivia, and then we're going to come back and do that leadership panel that we've been talking about with Jeff and Eric and their team to speak with you all in a little bit more depth about the projects. So Jay, if you are set, I will turn the show over to you.
Great.
While this is loading here, I'll real quickly acknowledge Jay is currently the interim public works director with the city of Peoria. Previously, he has been serving as the chief of staff to the city manager's office, meaning he's in charge of just kind of helping to execute the vision and goals of the office. Previously, Jay was serving as the community liaison until his workload with the transition became a little bit too much for that. And so we have to also acknowledge him for his past work in jockeying all of the parts and playing that role. So it looks like we are still loading here. I'll take this moment also to quickly acknowledge Sharon Roberson, who is currently serving in the role of liaison, helping us to make sure that the magic happens, and who has also joined us here on the call today. Lastly, I would like to acknowledge all of the Peoria staff who have joined us on the call, who will be working with you all this semester on your projects. These are the folks who will be connecting with our students directly. And it looks like, Jay, did I buy you enough time?
You did.
All right.
If you have any announcements, students or participants will have to either go to www.kahoot.it, as you see it there on the screen, or if you have the Kahoot app, some of you might, you can play along there. But we need folks to access Kahoot one way or the other there.
Great. Thanks for doing that, Jay. And then, so this is,
for those of you that have done, there's Allison and Jacob. All right, people, which is there on the screen.
So
watch and play, join.
Jeff, thank you for that question. Can city managers play? Yes, you can play. However, since this is a fun kind of competition, it's a friendly competition, but it is a competition. And I would encourage the Peoria team to let our students get their answers in first, maybe you know, take a step back. But please go ahead and play.
If everyone's ready and can hear me, I will start the game. You can play on your phone or your computer by choosing the color or the shape that matches the answer that you want to give. So let's see how this goes. All right, there's the question. ASU landed in the top 3 in the U.S. and News and World Report rankings for 2021 in which category? And those should pop up here pretty quickly, although there they are. So again, on your phone, choose the right answer. And in a second, we will see
the answer to this one.
It's kind of bad. It's a little bad. All right, 13 of you got that right. Best online programs, again, in the top 3. Great. All right. We'll get a little scoreboard action. Sophia is in the lead. Next question is this in Peoria? A picture will show up, and then there will be some choices. If it is in Peoria, you'll identify what it is, and hopefully you get it right. Steve, this is your chance to redeem yourself.
Taking a wild guess.
All right, 12 of you got it right. That is the Peoria Sports Complex. Very well done. And Sam D has moved into the lead. Way to go, Sam. Next question. What is Peoria's approximate landmass? There's a drawing of Peoria. If you can do the calculations real quick in your head, you should be able to get the answer.
Multiply length times height times gigawatts.
Right. All right, you all got it right. 179 square miles. We are mostly a tall and skinny city. Let's see what happens. Sam remains at the top of the board. Good job, Sam. Next question right here. Is this in Peoria? Picture will pop up. Identify it. Let us know if that's in Peoria.
Well, I would not call this a train wreck, so it can't be the blue one.
All right, you all got it right. Yes, that's just an example of some of the art we have in Old Town Peoria as it was being installed. Sam, you are killing it. All right. Next question. Another ASU question. And let's see how you did. 14 of you got it right. If you answered Sears, I'm impressed that you know what Sears is, but depressed that you thought that that was the answer. Let's see how the scoreboard looks. Sam D is unbeatable at the moment. He's crushing it. Next question. Is this in Peoria? Ten of you got that right. That is placemaking in P83. All right. Somebody knocked Sam. It's Ann has knocked Sam off the leaderboard. Well done, Ann. Next question. In which desert is Peoria located? Everybody got that right. Of course, it's the Sonoran Desert. Scoreboard, Ann remains on top. Well played.
Ooh, Sharon's
Next question. Yeah. What road does not pass through Peoria?
ASU Tempe students may know this one.
Everybody but one got that right. Correct. All right. What does that do to the leaderboard? Ann remains. Okay. Ann may have played this game before. I'm not sure. But we do have some new questions this time. Right. As of September of last year, how many years in a row has ASU been ranked the top school for innovation in the U.S.? There are your choices. Steve, this is where you redeem yourself.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens. Like, I know that yes, but yes isn't an answer.
Yeah, we were looking for 6 years, so most of you got that right. 6 years, most innovative school in the U.S. Devin takes the lead. Good job, Devin. All right, next question. Is this in Peoria?
Oh, it's obviously blue.
Well, I will tell you, this has 2 correct answers are possible.
Oh my gosh, you're right.
Yeah, 2 of you got the alternative answer, which is the intellectual center of the universe. That is correct. It's also the ASU campus, not in Peoria. So let's see what that does to the leaderboard. Nobody's knocking Devin off. All right, next question. We've had a good run. Is it frozen? No, we're going. All right. Peoria was discovered by former Union officer William J. Murphy in 1885, who was in Arizona at the time working as what? William was a handsome man.
I can see that. It's the beard.
Yeah, it's always the beard.
Sure. It's always the beard.
Let's see how you did. Yes, he was the head of construction for the Arizona Canal. Water was important to us back then, too. All right, Devin, unbeatable. Next question. Courses of this Peoria program aim to empower residents to make small changes toward a sustainable future. That program is one of these selections.
Folks who've been following the Project Cities projects for a while will know the answer to this one.
That's right.
Project with this last spring. I do want it to be green, though.
It is red. Sustainable U. Devin remains in the lead.
What a
All
lead
right,
that
Devin's
is.
the one to beat. Peoria has a strong commitment to leadership in energy and environmental design. Lead pertains to what? See how you did.
Trying to see if the word's in the icon. ASU has a lot of buildings that have this certification. Oh, it looks like the timer's set really long on this one.
Oh, man.
I think that's all the answers, though.
Let's see what happens if we hit skip. There we go. Sustainable buildings. You are correct. Devin is out. Sam is back. Welcome back, Sam. Which of the following awards has Peoria not received? We receive a lot of awards around here. One of these is not among them. Let's see how you did. Yeah, you're correct. Only because we have the date there. We actually won that award in 2019, but we did not win it in 2020. Well played.
Oh man, I'd love to read the press release for
that. Sam remains on top. Okay, is this in Peoria?
I really want it to be a musical instrument.
That is the Yucca Oroxley by Boppy Zokitis. Piece of art in Peoria. Who got that right? KP. We have a new leader at the top. All right, just a few of these left. Whoa, how did that end up in there twice? If you got this wrong the first time, I'm not going to give you a second chance. We're going to skip right past that one. Sorry about that. All right, what is the name of Peoria's entertainment district which surrounds the Peoria Sports Complex? Here are some choices for your consideration. That's correct. It is P83 because it's in Peoria on 83rd Avenue. See what we did there? KP remains at the top of the pile. Good job, KP. Next question. Is this in Peoria? That is correct. It is in Peoria. It's part of our Memorial Wall exhibit at Rio Vista Park.
Oh, so it's not from Top Gun?
It is not, no. All right, KP remains on top. Just a couple chances left to knock KP off of there. Which of these responses includes the 2 community theaters in Peoria? That is correct. That was probably a tough one. KP stands. All right. Only 2 questions left.
SCN team, looking at you on this one. And nobody cheat by going to projectstudies.asu.edu to find out.
That's correct. Tucson is not a partner. I don't know if they were invited, but their invitation may have gotten lost in the mail if they were.
No, some people just can't hang.
All right. Oh, Sharon has assumed the lead. All right. Last question.
I guess another hint is that cool helicopter that was not from Top Gun is situated along one of these.
Yes.
Probably doesn't help anyone.
That is correct. If you answered Skunk Creek and New River, that is correct. Let's see what that does to the podium. Coming in third place is Allison with 14,687 randomly assigned points. KP in second place. And in first place, it's Sharon. All right. So now you know a little bit more about Peoria. And Steve, back to you.
Well, wonderful, Jay. Thank you so much for bringing out the Peoria trivia. It's one of my favorite parts of the year. Yeah, and well done, everyone. Thank you for participating. Hopefully that was a more interesting way to learn about the community than just like watching a video or something. But seriously, Peoria is a great place. Y'all should really check it out. Y'all will get to know the community a little bit over the course of this semester here. And thank you, Jay, for putting out the Peoria trivia for us again. Now, with that, it's about time to transition over to the next part of our program here. I'm going to ask Jeff Tyne, Eric Strunk, Jay, to go ahead and turn on your videos and unmute. We're going to have ourselves a little panel here. So with us today, Jeff Tyne, you all got to hear from him a little bit earlier. Jeff is an ASU alumnus, Master of Public Administration and a BS in Political Science. He's been with the city of Peoria for over 25 years, and as he mentioned, as the city manager, he's essentially kind of the CEO of the city, overseeing all operations of the city and managing the pieces and making sure they're all in play. I just checking real quick. I don't see Katie on the line. If I'm missing you, Katie, go ahead and hop on. Next, Eric, thank you for joining us again this year. Also, over 25 years of experience in local government, but prior to Peoria was with the City of Glendale, Director for Public Facilities, Recreation, and Special Events Department. Also a fellow Masters of Public Administration and ASU alumni? No, yeah. Oh, I'm so sorry. Gosh.
Yep. No, CU.
You know, there's
University of
always
Colorado.
Hey, great place. We are also joined here by Jay Davies, who also is ASU alumni, Masters in Public Administration, our program as well. And he former community liaison with the city of Peoria in the Project Cities Partnership, prior experiences with law enforcement. And then, I'm sorry, I did not prompt Sharon, if you'd like to hop on as well. I think it's nice to kind of get multiple perspectives on this panel here. Sharon is currently serving in the community liaison role, which means she's helping us to move the parts around and keep the partnership moving. 16 years with the city of Peoria. And prior to her time with Peoria, serving, working with employee travel in the private sector. Also an ASU alumna, certified public manager, and organizational leadership in public service. So, folks, thank you again for hopping on to speak with us all today. We're going to start off with a nice, easy question for you. And why don't we go ahead and start it off with Jeff. So the question, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself? I know you spoke already about your position and kind of the general strokes. Any more specifics you'd like to add in about maybe kind of what does a day look like in the shoes of Jeff Tyne? And then what led you to work for the city of Peoria? And then we're going to ask the same question to y'all.
Yeah, no, it sounds great. And just so you know, I will have to lop off at about 1:55. I got kind of an item going on, but yeah, just probably I'm originally a native Californian and kind of was figuring out where I wanted to go to school. And I thought, wow, I really enjoy the larger schools and gosh, a Pac-12 school. So I came out to Arizona. It was the first time I'd ever came out and I just absolutely loved it. And so I've been here for incredibly long time. And it's fun to watch as Arizona continues to grow and that I'm a part of it. When I was doing my schooling, kind of had the chance to help at the federal level, worked in a couple different congressional offices, but then also was able to intern at the state level at the Joint Legislative Budget Committee. But really where I found where you're making most of the most meaningful impact really is in local government. It's one of those things that you can gather the tenor of what is happening, there's a sense of what is going on within your community that you can really tap into. You also have the chance to really make a meaningful mark. The things that you do and the investments that you take on really are something that you can apply. The other thing that's great about local government is you can look at things, in this day and age, we really to get caught up in the headline, right? And what is specifically going on. And a lot of headlines, unfortunately, are focused on fear or anger. And that's just something that you don't see as much at the local level. It is nonpartisan for the most part. And quite frankly, what you see is people have that sense you can live and feel a community. And that's why I think of it as a little different. And that's why I really invested myself in this world. I came up through the kind of the budget finance realm originally, but I'm not necessarily just kind of something that I gravitated to. But like you're going to hear from many of the folks here, you really have so many options on how you get to where you want to go. And it's not like a pyramid. It's not like you need to get to the city manager and you have achieved nirvana. It's instead really, you're going to find your happiness just in so many different ways. And it's going to be making a mark in your community. It's going to maybe working with your work group and having an esprit de corps. There's so many ways that you can find contentment and happiness. And that's why we like to talk about that type of thing in the city. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you. And thanks for joining us, Jeff. I know you're going to have to hop off. Feel free to do so when you need to. But I'm going to ask a similar question. I'll turn over to Eric real quick. As a deputy city manager, you're overseeing kind of a segment of the operations of the city. So I'd love to hear if you could tell our students about kind of what those segments are. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you work for Peoria.
Sure. Thank you, Stephen. And just a quick side note, I think this is for Ann. I think it was a little over 3 years ago. I think we gave you a phone call and said, hey, what if? And here we are 3 years later. So again, just like you mentioned earlier, thank you so much for partnering with us over the last few years. And also welcome to the new students for this term. I think you're really, really going to enjoy the staff here and the experience in Peoria. But basically, yes, you're right, Stephen. I'm a deputy city manager. Let me start by introducing myself. I am a deputy city manager. I oversee 4 key areas for the city of Peoria. One is water services, public works. I get to work with Jay and his delightful crew. I also oversee neighborhood and human services, and I also oversee our parks and recreation component as well. And to me, what I do, I work at the pleasure of Jeff. I work with 2 other delightful deputy city managers in the city manager's office. And for me, it's a calling. It always has been. It's a public service calling. I'm one of those who years ago grew up outside of Arizona. I grew up in Colorado. I'm from that area. Found my way to University of Colorado, went to grad school and realized that, public administration is where I wanted to be. I really had a calling for public service. So one of the best things I ever did was, hey, there's an internship, and that was in Glendale. And I said, let's put in for it. Let's see what the waters have to say. So I came down here, interviewed, got the position, and here it is all these years later. Where I'm a deputy. I think one of the best things that I would throw out, Peoria is a wonderful, wonderful community. I had wanted to work in Peoria for quite some time. There are a lot of reasons for it. There is a solid financial background. Everything we do in Peoria is driven by money to a certain degree. We don't overlook, though, the importance of connecting with our citizens, but having the ability and seeing what Peoria had done, even through the tougher years many years ago, Peoria kind of came out on top. It wasn't easy, don't get me wrong, but was standing a lot more strongly than some other Valley communities. And I had always appreciated that. I think the other thing too, that's been a real benefit, of real interest, has been just the environment in which I work here in the city. Great staff, great stability with our elected officials. That's so important. And as the students go through, and if they choose to do internships in public agencies or different cities or counties or states even, that leadership at the very top, the stability of that leadership, the willingness to be open, to listen, to consider, but to think smartly is just so critical. The other really quick thing I wanted to mention is it's a thank you. Several of the projects with which your students, ASU and Sustainable Cities, have been involved with. I was looking through one the other day. You've done so many for us, and a lot of those have been in areas that I oversee. And I can tell you that we're in varying states of implementing some of those recommendations, not all of them, but most of them. And it's good, we're incorporating this into our long-term planning. So long story short, enjoy being here. I enjoy working for Jeff. I'm glad that I have the team that I have, and I'm particularly excited that we're launching another semester with the Sustainabilities program.
Well, we'll ditto that. We're very excited to launch this semester, as well as I'm sure, our students. Jay, I'll turn it over to you. Same question. Oh gosh, and the question was, tell us about yourself. Why'd you get to, how and why did you come to Peoria? And and specifically for you, because you are currently in an interim position with Public Works, so that's the department that you oversee. But previously, you've been the chief of staff for the city manager, and potentially some crossover between those. Can you speak a little bit to what it is to be working in an interim capacity as you are currently, how that affects kind of the what you're overseeing on a daily? And
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start with kind of a little bit about myself, and that bleeds right into how I ended up here. And that is, I grew up in the West Valley. I'm not a native, but I'm about as close as you could come. Grew up again not in Peoria, but the West Valley. Went to ASU, as you do. As I got my undergraduate degree, which of all things was in psychology, I was at the point where I worked so hard to get that degree that it was really important to me to get a job that required that degree. So I had been working in the not-for-profit sector for a number of years, put myself through school in a variety of social service settings, but it was really important to me to get a job that required that degree. So I began applying, applied for a job in, of all places, the Peoria Police Department in a civilian role there. Ended up getting that position, and that was really the start back in 1997 of what's been a fantastic career. And it kind of goes to your other question about what I'm doing now. I never would have predicted, when I applied for that first job, all of the things that would have been available to me, the opportunities, the diverse experiences, the rich experiences that I got. I truly was looking for a job that required a degree and hadn't given it the kind of thought that Jeff and Eric had in terms of service. I'd been serving in the social service sector, but it wasn't until I got here and realized that here, believe it or not, I can make more of a difference than I was, working directly. We can talk about, those cycles in the social service arena and some of those frustrations, but I'd rather focus on, and I think Jeff touched on it really well, at the local government level, you really do make a difference. I spent 20 years in law enforcement as a civilian, running programs there that made people, feel safer and enrich their lives. And then now in Public Works, it's really a whole different angle. Everything that Public Works does, people, whether they realize it or not, they benefit from that every day, from the streets they're driving on, the traffic signals, the solid waste and recycling being picked up, the facilities that we maintain, the fleets that allow all the departments to do their work. Public Works is really what allows people to go on about their day without even thinking about it. You really only think about us when something, when a traffic signal is flashing or when you drive through a pothole, which is very rare in Peoria, I must say. One of the things that early on I was able to do in the police department that carried on to what I do today is really a continuum. I started working with first high school interns, bringing them into the police department, then college interns. Then when I moved into working with the executive team here with Jeff, I was exposed to the Marvin Andrews Fellowship and bringing those folks in. And then that carried over to what we're doing now, which is Project Cities, working with students again. So as I look back over that, early on in my career, it seemed important to me that kind of show public service and what it offers to students at all levels, because I didn't have that. I look back and thought it was just by happenstance I ended up here, and what a loss it would have been if I hadn't done that. So it wasn't even on my radar screen when I was in high school or even in college. So I've been very intentional about wanting to educate students formally and informally about what it means to work for a city, the rewarding opportunities that come with that direct level of service and bringing those services to the residents. It's been extremely rewarding.
Well, Jay, I so much of what you said just echoes with me. I was also a psychology undergrad. I didn't realize we had that in common.
Yeah.
Same thing, driven by wanting to make the bigger impact, and suddenly I find myself working with city governments. So yeah, it's a real opportunity to make an impact. Now, I understand Sharon's video is not working, but I wanted to give you the opportunity. Sharon's going to provide her expertise as well on this panel, representing kind of a different part of different piece of the organization. Sharon, can you give us a little bit of info on who you are and what you do with the city?
Sure. Thanks, Stephen. I apologize, everyone, that my video is not working, but I grew up here in the Valley. I am a Phoenix native, born and raised, and never left except to travel the world. And that was where I started my career, was that I knew I wanted to travel. So my undergrad degree at ASU in the Stone Age was in French, of all things. And because I knew I wanted to travel to all these countries that spoke French, and that was my whole reason for getting that degree, which my father kind of didn't understand why he was paying tuition for that. But it gave me a really good, broad liberal arts education, which has, believe it or not, stood me in good stead as I've gone through life. I got my first job with the airlines. I worked for a local startup airline here called America West. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember it, but it's gone through a couple of large mergers since then, and it is now the world's largest airline, American Airlines. But as a result of working for corporate entities and going through mergers, is that there are some casualties along the way, and I was one of those. So after 21 years of creating a career in that area, I found myself looking for something new. So I looked toward local government, and I'm glad I did, because I really found a great niche here that I never knew would exist for me. Like Jay, I found my first step into this local government through law enforcement, and I got a job with the police department and worked my way up through there in administrative roles and learned a lot that way. But I kind of reached a point where I needed a little more of a challenge. So I applied for this job over here in the city manager's office and was lucky enough to be selected. And it's been a great whirlwind ride, and I've learned so much. I still have a lot more to learn, but it's really a great area to just see the entire city from a macro view, and just have all kinds of different projects every day. People ask me what my job description is, and I say, what day is it and what hour of the day is it? Because it's always changing. But that makes it really fun and really challenging. And I'm excited to take this new project on and work closely with Anne and the group from ASU, since Stephen is leaving us for cooler pastures, but that's okay. We know we're in good hands.
Yes, we have an excellent team and a great group of students with us. Airline industry's loss, Peoria's gain. So glad we could have you on board. You're exceptionally well organized and have already proved a huge asset this semester. So for our next set of questions here, I want to say, first of all, students, feel free to throw some questions in the chat. I have a script here that we're going to follow. It kind of guides us through a process, but we will divert and address your questions as needed. City staff who are on the line, all of our project leads, thank you again for joining us. Do feel free to hop on. If any question that's asked you have a great answer to, don't hesitate to flip that camera on and just go ahead and you can indicate to us that way that you'd like to respond. So with that, I'm going to hop into our next segment, which is just talking about the city of Peoria. So I'll throw out first there, anyone want to give us the elevator pitch? Who wants to give us just the elevator pitch to our students on what makes Peoria so great and why they should get involved here? How about Eric?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to jump in. So, hey, by the way, I was looking at the description of Peoria, and there was some exciting news the other week. Peoria is no longer at 175,000 with this new census data coming in. We're right at 191. So we've grown tremendously. And I think, to me, that's a really exciting element about this community. Very established portions of it, very mature portions of it. And you can see that as the students visit Peoria. Hopefully they're able to take some time to check it out and drive through it if they haven't familiarized themselves with it. But what's so promising about Peoria is its potential. And that is any number of ways of looking at it. I think first and foremost, we're welcoming new residents. Like other Valley communities, there's a tremendous amount of growth going on. We like to think we have one huge asset that probably a lot of other jurisdictions around here don't have, and that's that big lake to the north called Lake Pleasant. And if you've never been there, it's really a special place to see and visit. Yes, you can go up there and recreate, rent a boat, hang around the beach, go to Scorpion Bay or Pleasant Harbor. But in reality, what you'll see too, more importantly, is a lot of open space, a lot of pristine views. And I think that's what's a little exciting about Peoria. We know the growth is here. It will continue. We know that there are different ownerships in Peoria of some of that land. Some of it's private, some of it's owned by the state of Arizona, some of it's owned by the federal government. So part of our challenge and part of the intriguing part of what we do is, how do you balance all that into smart growth? And we are going through that every single day with what we do up here on the third floor of City Hall and our planning department, our engineering department, and so on. I think the other really neat thing about Peoria, we are establishing, and it's growing, a foothold into where we're trying to get a little more focused on tourism. We know we have some sites outside of Lake Pleasant that we want to showcase, and we're trying to. I think Jay asked a trivia question about P83. That's a really unique area. That's home to a baseball facility, for those of you who don't know, and we have the Seattle Mariners and San Diego Padres that do their spring training there. But there's some real excitement going on. There's a lot of horizontal parking space in that area, and we have been actively, not myself, but one of my counterparts has been actively working with a developer to go vertical and perhaps build some Class A office space, a hotel, potentially some multifamily, and a lot of retail in that area. So in a nutshell, there's so much promise in Peoria with respect to that pristine, open Lake Pleasant North area. We've got a well-established quality of life through our Parks and Recreation Department. We have trails all over the city. We have 3 community parks. But in reality, it's a lot of promise that we have here, and we're beginning to deliver on that. So it's to me, those are the 2 big things that pop into my mind.
Wonderful. Thanks for that, and thanks for catching our error too. The census numbers.
No.
Yeah, but that's really exciting. That's significant growth over 10 years, and you still have, like you said, so much room to continue to do it.
Yes.
I think
Yep.
one of the things that's been really exciting about working with the city of Peoria for 3 years now is that the city really is committed to that pre-planning. We've done multiple projects talking about, with growth, what do water needs look like? How do we plan for a sustainable future? Which is a really important part of municipal operations and something Peoria does really well. It's also a nice segue to our next question. Unless anyone wants to add to the elevator pitch, you have a few seconds to do that.
That was a long elevator ride, by the way.
We went to the top floor. Thank you for taking us there. So the city of Peoria has established, and is my bar right in the middle of it, the city of Peoria has established 6 livability initiatives. This is a guiding values framework for our students' information that helps to inform kind of how Peoria approaches its work. And it has been a helpful framework too, as we think about the projects that we're all doing together, and how we make sure that Peoria is planning to be the smart, sustainable community of the future. So my question that I'd like to ask all of you on our panel here is, what are 1 or 2 ways that you have, what are 1 or 2 livability initiatives that you have consciously practiced here in the last week or so, and maybe tell us an anecdote about what that looked like to you, maybe what that value means and what it looks like in practice. And for
It's like a job interview question where we have to give it,
I know, right?
Right?
And for our students, those are healthy neighborhoods, economic competitives, efficient transportation, superior public services, arts, culture and recreation, and smart growth.
Steve, I'll take a crack at that. And as a director, I'll let you in on a little secret. I don't do anything, but I have amazing people that do a lot of stuff. And some of them, frankly, are on the call here. But, a couple of examples come to mind, and none of them are earth shattering to us. But, to the people who call, these are things that are important to them. It affects their daily lives. And I've got a team that is so professional and so dialed in and so smart about what they do that they just instantly know what to do. They dispatch folks to resolve the matter. I'm finding, I thought the police department was an exciting place where a lot of stuff happened, but PD has nothing on public works. I mean, just today, I get an inquiry. Hey, in fact, came from Sharon. There's a street light down in Old Town. Somebody ran over a street light. So I reach out to my streets manager, and she's on it. I mean, these things are routine for her, but for folks going down the street, that creates a traffic hazard. It can be a problem. We've had others where, just this week, and again, it goes back to streets, but people are very spoiled and used to a high level of what we call pavement condition here in Peoria. And when a street owned by an HOA, but they saw some faults with their street and didn't know where to go. They know they're responsible for the street as an HOA. They built it, but they reached out to us because they're having problems with it. Again, my streets manager had a great solution to that, knew just from the phone call what was probably happening, gave them some advice, and now the HOA knows where to go. So I could give you a bunch of other examples, but it's just the type of stuff that while for us it's routine, these things really can interrupt somebody's day. And we're somebody they can reach out to, get expert and quick advice, if not us solving the problem ourselves, and they can get back on with their daily routines. And being part of that team and seeing these men and women in action, it's really impressive. Their knowledge, their approach and professionalism, and their dedication to superior public service is the livability initiative that I'm referring to, and the folks here, they live it every day.
Thanks for that. Eric, do you have any examples of working on those livability initiatives that you can share with the students?
I can share one right here. So I don't know if you can read. It says Pogo. It's in reverse probably. But just wanted to let you know, you worked with Jay's department and Kathy Colbath. She's our transit manager. And you kind of looked at Pogo and how it's used and what we might be able to do to enhance it. Well, kind of rolling a few months forward, in October of this year, we're slated to unveil, it's called Pogo Destinations. And what we've done is we've basically taken the old concept here and we've retooled it. And the old concept, again, this was an ASU School of Sustainability's study through our partnership. We in October, we'll be implementing a brand new Pogo Destinations. We're redoing routes, we're relocating bus stops. We're in the process of developing an outreach piece to let our residents know. And this is one of those projects that Jay talked about that makes a good quality of life. And Jay, I don't know if you want to add anything more to it, but to me, this is a very real example of how this fits into one of our most important livability goals, transportation/transit. And it's a good example of operationalizing a concept. Oh, mute.
Yeah.
Sorry. Here, this is the universal symbol for you're muted.
Yep.
Yes.
Learning new things. All right. I've used Zoom before, I promise. So I just dropped in the chat, I dropped the link to specifically the report that Eric's holding.
Nice.
And yeah, I did notice in the new Pogo offering, some of it looks familiar. So that was pretty cool to see student work translated into on the ground, and the efficient transportation value, I assume, is what we're talking about here. So Jacob asked the question, will we go on a field trip to see the landfill in Peoria? So funny you should ask. Yes, we have planned a site visit that is planned for next week on the 16th. We have info on the Canvas site. I know not everyone is on there yet, so we'll have, actually, Allison, can you just real quickly and check and make sure that Jacob is on the Canvas site and go ahead and add him if not. But Jacob, you can check the Canvas site for more details on that. And we're gonna be meeting with Jay and his team at the site. I don't believe that there is a landfill in Peoria, correct? Okay. So we're going to see more of kind of like pre-sort operations and look at some of the specialty recycling programs, look at the transit. Jay, do you want to maybe preview any parts of that tour that we're going to have next week?
Yeah, and I hate to burst Jacob's bubble further, but we don't do any on-site pre-sorting either. So our event that Steve's referring to is at our Municipal Operations Center. You'll see where our kind of solid waste and recycle operations are housed, but everything we do once we pick it up happens somewhere else. So in terms of actual, recycling or processing, anything of the sort, that's not something that happens in Peoria. We take that elsewhere. We have some really good partners, depending on the part of the city we're working in. we can certainly set some things up to visit some of those at other times, but that won't be part of our site visit. That same operations center also houses our transit function. So I know Kathy's on here. That's where our dial-a-ride operations and all of our kind of transit functions are housed. Again, those are going to be out in the field during that time, but you'll kind of see where the operation goes. The Municipal Operations Center is really just kind of the starting point, where vehicles and personnel are housed and maintained, and we go out from there.
Hey, Steve, if I could mention something real quick, just to kind of piggyback on what Jay said. Peoria is interesting in that you're absolutely right. It doesn't have its own landfill, it doesn't have its own materials sorting facility. But what we do have, we've thought about long and hard, and that's relationships with several of our peer communities in the Valley. And this is something for the to think of as they go through their experiences. I think we have all the answers and all the resources, but sometimes we don't. So in those situations, Jay and his team are always very good about connecting with the regional effort. Recycling isn't unique to Peoria, neither is it to Surprise or Phoenix. And the value in discussing that oftentimes reveals opportunity. And we have a long-standing relationship for Glendale where we tip our sanitation, our waste stream. But we also have a relationship with the city of Phoenix to take our recyclables up there. We still have a very active, strong recycling program as a result of that. So sometimes, you won't necessarily have it, but there may be others, and start that conversation.
Yeah, and that was a nice cue for the link I just dropped in the chat, which I would encourage, yes, the students who are working on our solid waste projects, but everyone to check out. If you have never been to a materials recovery facility or a MRF, that's kind of one of those things, in my opinion. It should be a grade school field trip. Everyone needs to see how that works. But yeah, so we're kind of touching on some interesting cooperative, intergovernmental cooperation and third-party governance here. And recycling is very much one of those areas of the public sector where it's not just run by one unit. I'm sure there are munis out there that run everything in-house, but it's not very common. A lot of that does get farmed out either to larger municipalities that have more facilities, or sometimes even to the private sector to help with processing and channeling waste streams.
Steve, if I can circle back to the original question, which was about our livability initiatives. I think a quick story of what's happened over the last few years with our recycling approach ties in really well to smart growth. So if you think back, and I had this conversation with the class I was with the other night, when you think back to a few years back when the recycling world kind of got turned upside down with the China sword and all the commodities markets really shifting the model from cities making money by recycling and selling the commodities to where the commodity markets just weren't supporting that model. And cities had a tough decision to make. Some cities decided to get out of recycling. They couldn't or didn't want to invest in now paying for something that once paid for itself. But Peoria didn't make that decision. They, again, committed to smart growth, knowing that landfills are not the long-term solution, and recycling and reuse is where we have to move to. So over the last few years, we've been kind of biting the bullet, so to speak, and making that investment to keep recycling going. But we just had some great news a couple weeks ago. Phoenix is one of our partners that Eric mentioned. We will now, in our next billing cycle, starting in October, we're back in the black. We will be getting checks from them instead of bills for the recycling that we take to them. So not only are we happy with that from a kind of an operational and budgetary standpoint, but more symbolically, that symbols to us that recycling remains viable. The commodity markets have been making adjustments, and they're just starting to reemerge and reimagine and bring new possibilities. And with that, one of the projects we have in front of you this semester is that e-waste project, where we want you to help us explore that. Not only are we committed to recycling and smart growth, but we know that things will always change and evolve, and we need to stay on top of the latest and the greatest. And that's where this partnership with you helps us do just that. We don't have the resources necessarily to pull every thread and investigate every potential commodity market or opportunity out there. But with your students and faculty and Dr. Brown, we know we have great partners that will help guide us as we look at those things.
This is wonderful.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And apologies for the broken link there. That's my bad. But y'all should definitely check out this report. And thank you for calling out Al Brown. His class worked with us and the Peoria team last semester to look into some of those changes and the real rocky shifts in the recycling commodities market. Fascinating industry. And we have several projects that we wanted to talk about, but before we go on to those, and I'll open this question to I guess all three of you, and we talked a little bit about the livability initiatives. Is there anything that you'd like to add about maybe some of the values that drive Peoria's work as a city, as a workforce, and even as your residents? What kind of priorities do they have? And I'll give you a second to think about that and real quickly address a question here from Daniel. Thank you for the question, Daniel. We planned our first site visit for the Peoria recycling and transit projects, 3 of those on the 16th of next week. We need to pick a date. So I'll actually be sending your class, or now that we know your students, we'll send kind of a schedule availability portal thing. Pick a time. And we may combine efforts, or we may have a couple smaller site visits, depending, but bringing folks out to City Hall directly to meet with some folks on your team. All right, so I'll turn it over to our panel now. Whoever wants to start us off. Values that drive Peoria and as a city and as your residents.
Hey, Steve, I'll take the first part of it. So internally, we do have a set of values that we inboard folks based on. And, for example, it's we want to be professional. We want to be responsive. We want to be open. We want to be innovative. We want to be accountable. One of the things that I get to do and talk to new employees about is ethics. And that's a value, if you will. It's its own field, obviously, but it's a core value, and we want our employees to be ethical. And we know our public wants us to be that way. We need to be aware that we public servants, we work kind of in the fishbowl. You've heard that before. Everyone's looking in all the time, and you're judged by what you do and what you don't do. So yes, the city of Peoria has a strong sense of values that we ask our employees to adhere by. And then real quickly, in the community, they want to see professionalism. They want to see responsiveness. They want to know the sanitation will be picked up, the water's safe and reliable. So there's a strong ethic with respect to professionalism that others perceive us by. And Jay and Sharon, I know you have perspectives as well.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that. And what's interesting is going back to those livability initiatives, we also train our brand new hires on those, because when you look at those, there is nothing we do as a city and nothing that any employee of ours does that doesn't touch on one or more of those livability initiatives. So those livability initiatives, that's all we do, and everything we do is there. So we like to kind of orient our new employees right at the beginning to say, these represent the council goals and their vision and what they're doing with the millions of dollars in taxes that come in. Your job then is, and we kind of go through the initiatives and how they apply to the different jobs. Your role is to be good stewards of that and to deliver and live these initiatives. And, the council, as it's kind of a cliche, but we know the council represents the citizenry. So back to your original question, those values reflect what our citizens want. And there is nothing we do that isn't in support of one or more of those livability initiatives. So we call them livability in the sense that, there's that term of being a livable city, but I look at it from a different way, and it's what we live, what our employees live every day is carrying out those initiatives.
Wonderful. Thank you. Sharon, anything to add?
Yeah, I'll just add that, as I have been working in the city of Peoria, I have noticed that it is a community that tends to really value a high quality of life. A lot of people moved to Peoria because of the Peoria School District, wanted to raise their kids here because of the open space, the dedication to trails and parks. It does tend to be a very family-friendly community. And I'm not saying that exclusive to any other community, but just Peoria has just really got that sort of, yes, we've grown into a big city, 191,000 now, but it's still got that sort of small town feel that people really moved and stayed here for that feeling of being able to raise your kids in a high quality environment.
Yeah. I mean, you see that too as someone, who works with you all on the regular. It's your residents are, they've got a great home to live in, and it's very clear that you all are prioritizing that quality of life. I want to jump ahead and talk about some of the specific projects that we'll be working on this semester. So some exciting stuff here. Why don't we just go ahead and do them in order here? We'll start with our transit messaging project. And so let me add here, students, feel free to throw any questions if we're talking about your project, if something comes to you. And again, city staff who are participating in these projects, please don't hesitate to hop into the conversation as well. But let's talk about that transit project. And what I'd be interested in hearing is, and this is a question maybe for Eric to start us off. On our transit project, the students are going to be working on educational messaging, helping riders to be more comfortable riding the Peoria, both Pogo and connections to the fixed route Valley Metro lines. Now, under that thread, if the students accomplished one thing this semester, what would you hope that would be? What is your kind of primary goal for an educational and messaging campaign around transit in Peoria and particularly the Pogo system?
Yeah, I think two quick things come to my mind. Certainly Peoria has a transit system that serves Peoria residents, north, south, east, west to a certain degree, and we'll be implementing Pogo, which is kind of more of a connector, point of pride type piece. And that's very important. We want to make sure that we're getting people from point A to point B. A lot of individuals rely on transit, as you know, for jobs, to get to school, to get to important medical appointments, and so on. I think one thing to have the students remember as they go through their experiences, even though we have local routes, we are still part of a regional transit consortium. And say, for example, you want to get the bus at City Hall and get to downtown Phoenix. How would you do that? We have to remember that, yep, our local routes will take you to place A, B, C, and D. And from A, B, C, and D, there are going to be other options. So I think seeing the bigger connection pieces is very important. And it's also very timely too, because there's a very large regional discussion going on with respect to, there may be an additional extension of a local sales tax that's been in place for over 20 years now. And it's going to come and become a real live wire here in the next year or so. And that is, how do you fund more transit routes? Do you fund more freeways and so on? So that would be the big thing. You can think local, but also think regionally as well.
Great, thanks for that. I'll turn the same question to Kathy and Jay, if you want to add anything to that. What's maybe your biggest priority around these questions about ridership and helping our riders feel more comfortable with using transit?
Sure, I'll jump in. Stephen, thanks for the opportunity. And Eric, he mentioned a key item in his discussion is we have folks who are dependent on transit to be able to get around. And we've talked about the great growth in Peoria that's happened recently, and certainly the growth that's projected for the future. And so folks who need transit know how to find out how to get around because they have to. And one of the things that we'd like to use this opportunity to do is to let people who may not need to rely on transit to know the benefit of transit in the community, whether it's existing now or with Pogo Destinations or even moving into the future, to get some of those, what we call choice riders, to have more confidence and education and knowledge of the transit system and the benefits it brings to the community, and maybe try it, give it a chance to see, because moving ahead, the more folks we can get on transit, the less people have to rely on their cars, but there's a big hurdle for people who don't need to use transit to understand how to use it. There's a lot to learn about, what is that thing that's driving down the street near my house, and how do I access it? Why would I do that? So that's something that even Pogo Destinations will really bring to our community. That's a new format of transit. So that's what we're looking for with this project.
Great, thanks. The floor is open if Jay or Sharon want to add anything to that.
Yeah, Steve, I'll just add, and Kathy said it very well. There's another niche of people that I would like to reach, and they're probably the third on the list. Kathy mentioned the users, the ones who use it regularly. They know how to use it. They need it. They live by it. And she talked about that second group of the choice riders. And so I won't go into that, but there's a third group that we constantly talk about. And those are the ones that probably don't need it right now, see it as, there's a bus in my way, or it's tax dollars that are diverted that could go somewhere else, because I live in Arizona. We're very car centric in Arizona. So it's that group that's also part of our stakeholder group that we want to reach and be able to communicate with them, not necessarily to convince them to ride, although that would be great to get some of them as choice riders. And I really feel like this iteration of Pogo might do just that. But to bring the value of transit, helping them understand why people use it, whether by choice or by need, and how some of the folks who never see themselves needing it could very easily, be on the other side of the fence someday.
Yeah,
Fair point.
all right. Sharon, feel free to chime in if you want to add to that, or otherwise we will move on. I just saw you on mute. Go for it.
The experts on transportation and transit have spoken very well.
They have. So we're gonna go ahead and let's see. I do have one specific question, and this one's for Kathy. And this is just this project represents a continuation of two past projects. So can you talk about how this work may continue some of that, dovetail off of it, head in a completely different direction? How do you see this in kind of the progression of projects you've done with ASU students on the transit system?
Yeah, great. And thanks, Eric, for holding up the last version of what was produced. And we, continue this theme with the students we're working with on Project Cities to further advance the transit in Peoria. So we've kind of had these similar themes. One of our first groups looked at specifically Pogo riders and our younger riders and how do we communicate with them better. That was great because the insight that we got back from the students, they could really connect with those high school riders and give us some insight. They let us know that the real-time app that we were using was not necessarily what most folks who use a real-time app were used to seeing. So we're actually working now with our app provider on updating that as we're getting ready to launch our new version of Pogo. The second group we worked with was great because Pogo is a circulator. It's a newer type of transit. There are several systems here in the Valley. There's some across the country, but it's really something that is more successful in the suburban areas than the urban areas. You know, the urban areas, you have your hardcore transit types of services, but as you get further out, the circulators are really a great method of getting people around their community and then connecting to those regional systems that Eric had talked about earlier. And so as these circulators are coming up, we realized that there was no study nationally on what makes it a successful circulator. What are some of the benchmarks? So the last group really, you know, was cutting edge on developing a document that could be used not only here by us, but in the region and throughout the country. So we took some components of that, put that into the new version of our circulator. And Eric mentioned the upcoming election for the next funding for the 20 years for the regional half-cent sales tax. We have a number of circulators as projects in our plan, as do a number of other cities in the region. So this is some type of service that will continue to be used here in the Valley. And then the next step is, as we're putting this in, you know, this commitment to funding for these services in our city, how do we make sure that our residents see the benefit of it with whatever group you're in? You know, the riders who have to use it are choice riders, or as Jay was talking about, those residents who, you know, not everybody goes to the library, but they see the benefit for that. So we need to have some kind of recognition for that on the transit side as well. So communicating that out, all as part of building up this whole program moving forward.
Wonderful, thank you. We're gonna hop over to our next project now. Let's talk about the Dark Sky Ordinance. So this one came in from our planning and zoning team. I don't believe we have them here on the line. So the rest of the folks here can help us pinch hit.
I apologize, Stephen, that group from planning was not able to join this today. So
totally happens.
We
All
will have
good.
to schedule an individual with that group, with those experts.
Yeah, and I think that would be great for the students too. I know they had a lot of questions I couldn't answer the other day. And again, I'll invite those students to chime in if you have any questions. But I'd like to start with the same question. And so the context there is the students would begin kind of preliminary work on looking at dark sky ordinances, which is, for those of you who aren't familiar, is initiatives that reduce light pollution, enabling residents to get better access to stars and natural night lighting. Also there's a lot of knock-on benefits for human psychology. It's good for our brains for the lights to turn off, it turns out, for wildlife, and lots of impacts as well on like flora and fauna. That said, Eric, Jay, Sharon, top priorities for this project. If the students accomplished one thing doing that research, what would you hope that they would accomplish?
Stephen, I'll take a crack. This is near and dear, and this is kind of an important project. It was a little over a year ago. There were a group of residents in a particular neighborhood that reacted to the replacement of some streetlights, of all things. And we've been systematically going through our major mile streets, our arterial streets, and our half-mile streets, and replacing high-pressure sodium lights with LED lights. And this, yeah, Jay's, he's got it right there. It's like, there was an area of our city, kind of a relatively newer area. Actually, I should say it's about 10 years old, that was developed with a different set of standards. And it was likened to, and there was a perception that we are a dark sky community. The challenge for the students is going to be, we live in an urban environment. We are a big city next to an even bigger city. How do you balance exactly what you just said, being able to see the stars, but also safely navigating the roadways, but doing it in a manner that it doesn't disturb local residents? And it's been a very, very fun staff exploration. So it's going to be fascinating to see what the students are able to come up with when they start exploring these dark sky types of ordinances elsewhere, and maybe even some of the different types of lighting technology. Got to keep in mind though, it's okay to think that, but there's always a price to that. And we've only got so much in our budget. So it's going to be a real fun experience for the students, but it's also a very important experience because we're not quite done with our journey yet on the whole concept. And Jay, I'll turn it over to you. And
Thanks, Eric. And I'll just add, to be honest, I'm not overly familiar with kind of the problem statement that's been put before you, but picking up where Eric left off, I do know, because streetlights are in my division, there is no end of kind of misinformation about the technology that's out there, and frankly, the impact. We've got folks who see a street light a block away down their street, and they have concerns that it's shining in their house. When we're not going to have pitch black streets. That's just not safe, and
Right.
most people don't want that. So Eric spoke to kind of the comfort level of folks, and I think, I'm not sure how deep the folks who wrote the problem statement want you to get into the technology or the details, but there is a certain education in terms of what's the available technology, what's the outgoing technology, and why, in terms of kind of breaking down the alternatives and what does the future look like with these things. Eric mentioned cost. At the end of the day, people have, caviar taste, but, baloney budgets when it comes to paying taxes for these sorts of things. So that's an important calculation in helping them understand what goes with that. But for me, it's all about the reality and the technology and what is it really doing, and what does dark sky mean? What does it not mean? And, where's the balance between, safe and visible roadways and, being able to see the stars. Certainly want both, but not either at the expense of the other.
Right. It's a tough balancing act. And Eric, you actually hit on something that you don't see a lot of urban cities pursuing dark sky. It's a lot of it is, communities that have a lot of space between them and their neighbors. So yeah, really looking forward to seeing what we get out of this project here. Sharon, anything to add before we move on to the next project?
I guess probably just the one thing that that I think would be an interesting takeaway from this project is if students could find similarly situated cities around the nation where there is this difference in the city, where we have, the southern half of the city is more urban and really does require more lighting, and the northern half is more open space and more residential, bigger master plan communities, and is looking for those darker skies. So that would be interesting to see if there are any other similar cities out there and what they've done.
All right, we got a good slew of questions for the dark sky group.
Hi, yeah, I'm sorry. So I just pasted them in their height. This is Sophia speaking,
Perfect.
actually. Thank you so much for all the info you've provided us with so far. So we did have a bunch of questions, but we were unsure whether they were too specific for this setting. So if we were able to schedule a separate meeting, that would be really great. But I just thought I'd put the questions out there so that you could have a look, what we are lacking to get a better information or better point of view on the project.
Sophia, these are excellent questions, and I
they
think
really are.
a few of them are a little specific. We probably want to bring to the P&Z team, but I guess anyone on the panel want to address any of these? I think maybe number one.
Yeah, so Stephen and Sophia, real quick answer. We eventually went before our city council to talk about these LED lights and the perception of Dark Sky Ordinance. And we did look at the IDA, Dark Skies Association. And what we determined just through our own engineering design requirements, we didn't really address that. And even what we thought was the international code wasn't as tight as it should have been. So we said, hey, let's compromise here. As we replace older street lights with the newer technology in different parts of the community, we'll recycle those old ones and replace the ones in the darker sky area because of the light emissions. So to answer your question, we got a 2-year respite by taking that. So your study and what you come up with is going to be very helpful for us to cobble together the iteration of this. We've never really done an assessment to answer another question there. No, we've not hired a company to come in and do any type of dark sky assessment. I think the others we can probably get into offline because they're very good questions, very detailed questions.
And Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the questions posed there is to what extent the public was involved. I don't believe there was a whole lot of outreach in that regard, but maybe that eluded me.
No, that's a really good point. And it's just another thing. You're absolutely right, Jay. We started swapping out our high pressure sodium lights 3 or 4 years ago. So when our council funded it, we did X, and then we went and got additional funding in that time period. The communication part with our residents and our citizens wasn't as robust as it should have been. So part of what we need to look at is whatever the potential answer is, how do we communicate? How do we want to let those know? How much should they know? How much should they weigh in? So that should be hopefully a part of the study. Good point, Jay.
Excellent. Thank you. And thank you, Sophia, for your questions. We're going to get you in touch with Cody and Lori with Planning and Zoning, who can help get into the weeds a little bit on some of those. And it sounds like Eric semi-volunteered to be a part of that. If he has any input, I'm sure they will clue him in.
Great, thank you so much.
Devin, it looks like you may have a question for us.
Oh, I just wanted to introduce myself because I'm also participating in the Dark Sky Ordinance. So I just wanted to say hello. And then if you send Sophia anything, if you can also add me to the email. So maybe we can set up a Zoom meeting or something, or have people come into class and we can get into more detail about the ordinance.
Devin, there's really no need to introduce yourself. We remember you from your strong performance during the trivia portion of the program.
Thank you. I'm glad that you guys remember that. I was pretty proud of it.
Yeah, really no introduction is needed.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And thank you both for tuning in. More conversations to be had on this topic for sure. In the interest of time, we do have to move on to the next one, and we're going to go ahead and stop off community engagement. So the context for this project is kind of tackling that question that all municipalities are dealing with right now, and that is, how do you reach that hard to reach population? So we have a group of justice studies students that are going to take this on as their graduate research methods class, working with Christina Perez and her team to start by identifying this population. So our goal for this semester is to get a good idea of who your hard to reach group is, what their methods of communication are, and then through the research process, identify strategies that Peoria can utilize to reach that population. So with that brief, what panel would be your top priority for this project? And Christina, you can feel free to chime in as well. And I'll quickly address Jacob's question. Yes, we will put a recording up of this session. I know not everyone was able to attend today, so we will put a recording up. All right, so the question was, what's your top priority for the project on community engagement, identifying that hard to reach population?
Steve, I'll start, and then the good news is Jay, Sharon, and Christina have all been a part of the intense organizational effort to try to up our game in community engagement. We have a whole strategy we're looking forward to sharing with the students, and it'll be out of our, Sharon, if I'm not mistaken, is Neighborhood and Human Services the connection on this one?
This was really, Eric, an OC project.
Okay.
And more focused on how we communicate to that population.
Yeah, so to that point, one of the questions we ask ourselves is what are the best communication techniques? We think we know what they are, but we don't always have that answer. We've got social messaging, you have the old leaflet, you can go to schools, you can do PSAs, you can do newspaper articles, but what do the students see that's effective? How do we, I mean, we've got all these great tools, all these great resources, but what's the magic mix? I think it's as simple as that.
Steve, I'll add on to that. Part of what we look at with community engagement, so much of what we do as a city affects people at the neighborhood level. So it's real easy to communicate and engage with HOAs. They're organized, they have meetings, they have newsletters. But if your neighborhood is not part of an HOA, it presents a lot of challenges. How do we communicate with them as a neighborhood, as a smaller community within the larger community? What is their culture like? What are the changes or the services that we're about to offer? How are those going to impact them? Maybe negatively, maybe positively, but they represent a cohesive unit within the community that's difficult to reach. So, there are other populations, and maybe Christina can speak to that in terms of the intent. But one of the areas I always think of as, tough to reach are those non-HOA folks. I do think they're wise for not being in an HOA, but I'm not going to get on that soapbox. They're just tough to reach.
Thanks for that.
Yes, I'll chime in a little bit too. From this perspective, this is where the art part of marketing comes in. It's more of an art than a science sometimes. So, we have a lot of tools in our toolbox of how we can reach out to people, and it does come down to that right combination. What we have found is our hard to reach areas tend to be lower income, tend to be people that also speak a different language, non-HOA areas, things like that. But is there somewhere else that we're missing, or a different group that we're totally not reaching at all? I have my guesses as to what those might be, but it would be interesting to hear, what comes out of the research from this group too. So.
Wonderful. And I think what's really exciting about this project in particular is that every so often we strike one that just resonates with every community. And this one doesn't just resonate with cities and towns, it's with companies, with nonprofits, like any group of humans. Communication norms have changed so much over the last few decades that it's a real question, what's the best way to engage? So we're really excited about this project. And I had a specific question for Christina, I thought. No? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought I could have sworn I had one in here that said Christina. But Christina, anything that you'd like to add about this project and what you're maybe looking forward to in working with this group?
I think this will be the first time that I'm a little bit more in-depthly involved in Project City. So a lot of it is going to be me learning about your guys' process too. But I'm really hoping that we can get some solid ideas on both sides of it, both the sustainability aspect and just seeing what we can come up with to implement in our community, but also the communication side, because there's so much that's changing all the time, trying to keep up with just even new platforms, new ways of communicating. And if there's anything that we're missing that we need to be a part of, that would be great to know, just to add that to our toolbox. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but I'm sure there'll be more things that'll come out of this project as we move forward.
All right, thank you. So we're going to move on to our next project. We have 8 minutes to hit 3 projects. So here we go. I'll go ahead and we'll hit the solid waste project first. And let's maybe do these. Let's do these maybe a little bit rapid fire. What are maybe the top 1 or 2 priorities for recycling project? And we're looking at, for this one, we're looking at e-waste and biomass gasification. Both of those are kind of a feasibility study, a test the market sort of study. So actually, Jay, why don't we start with, can you give us a brief primer on what biomass gasification is and what e-waste is?
I may have to phone a friend, and that friend is going to be Aaron Red. I can give you a real quick overview on him, but I'm going to let Aaron do a better job than me in explaining really the difference between the two, if there is one.
Yeah, well, and while Aaron is getting his mic on, I'll start with e-waste because I can tell you all about e-waste, and it's basically, the gist is we have all of these materials that are super reusable and very carbon intensive to collect, to make, and we throw so many electronics into the waste. It's also toxic, it leaches over time. And I'm guessing Aaron must be away from his computer, but I'll throw in what I believe biomass gasification is. It's essentially it's plasma heating, if I understand. It's grabbing the natural gas that's going to come off of the decomposition process for green waste and turning that into a usable energy source. I could be totally wrong, and this recording may not age well, but that's
no, you're
right.
You're right. And so I'm not sure if Aaron has a microphone or not, but basically you hit on the head. So it's turning, traditional solid waste into gases that can be used for good versus evil. But that therein lies one of the questions. So I know the question you have for us is, what are some of the main takeaways? For me, it's a question of, is this a good thing? Because by the time you extract gas and then you're using gas, depending on the use and then the off gases from that process or from the end use, are you making the world better, or are you just contributing to additional pollution? That's part of the question behind gasification that there are 2 schools of thought on, and frankly, that's why I wanted to have students dig in deeper to help us kind of separate the wheat from the chaff where it comes to, is this a good thing? And then the other thing is, if it is good, what are the best, most practical uses that might be available to Peoria? And I see Rhonda is my science friend who I phone, and she's very much more in tune to this than I. So seeing her on there, Rhonda, are there any gaps you can fill in on that?
I think we just about covered it, Jay. I think mostly we want to see what's the kind of from an independent perspective, the research on it to see what makes the most sense for Peoria and whether we're there or not, which I suspect we're not necessarily there. I think it's going to be cost prohibitive, but it would still be nice to see the research that's gathered because, as we know, technology is ever changing in spite of the fact it's been around for, from what I understand, at least 100 years or so.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. And y'all have a great match with our environmental resource management program is primo. They're great. And you've had the pleasure of working with Al Brown before. We're very excited to bring him back on with his students again this semester. and we'll all be meeting in person next Thursday. So that's exciting. Unfortunately, in the interest of time, I have 2 more projects to hit very briefly. And I said rapid fire and then went on to a long explanation on the last one. Let's go ahead and actually do rapid fire on this one. And I am pleased to share that the public safety project around safe battery storage officially matched up. So we do have a match for that one. Students going to be looking into ordinances to safely store batteries and prevent explosive incidents, which can happen, unfortunately, when batteries are exposed to heat. Main priority for that project, 1 priority maybe from each of you for safe battery storage, code, zoning. We're looking at residential versus industrial.
Yeah, Steve, real quick, whatever you come up with is going to be greatly appreciated, particularly with some of the new housing products coming out. We hear a lot about these Tesla walls that are popping up all over the place.
Yep.
So we know more and more single family homes are probably going to want to incorporate that. And as they go, so will some of our commercial areas. And you're absolutely right. It's storage safety. Mm-hmm. We had an unfortunate incident over 1.5 years ago in this part of the valley. We don't want to repeat that. It's a different kind of story. But the point is safety. How do we safely do this as these technologies start to appear in building products?
Fabulous. And I'm going to jump into our last project here, which also just matched up officially this week, and that is the Historic Preservation for Old Town Peoria project. So very excited to work with Dr. Szerzynski's students. They'll be MPA capstone students as well, working together in a small group. And the project there is developing a preliminary historic preservation framework for Peoria and talking about how to celebrate the history in Old Town Peoria, both recent and afar. In the minute that we have left here, any comments on #1 priority for that project?
Well, Steve, unfortunately, it looks like John Sefton had to drop off.
I know.
Got to him.
I know. He messaged
He'll
me
be
right
the team lead on that project, but basically the big thing we're hoping to come out of that, and we'll host that group here at City Hall and take you to the Old Town area where we're focusing on. We're hoping to do an inventory of what we've got, of where it fits in a historic register type of environment, and get some community engagement and some ideas of where we can go as we're developing that Old Town area to do that while keeping a preservation of its history in mind.
Wonderful. Yep. There we go. Well, at this point, if I could, I'd like to maybe just invite everyone who's on the Peoria team to just flip your video on if you're able to, because I want to just briefly at this moment, just extend our gratitude on behalf of ASU. Such a pleasure working with all you all, and your team has been fabulous. And we really look forward to seeing the engagements with our students this semester. Thank you so much for your time, and I do hope that these projects are just as useful and valuable to you and their outputs as they are to reinforcing the learning experience for our students and giving our students the opportunity to do some real practical on the ground work. So with that, I'd like to give a quick round of applause for our City of Peoria folks who have joined us here today. Second round of applause for all of our students and faculty who are going to be doing all of the research this semester. Thank you to everyone who took the time to tune in today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you all. If you have any follow-up questions, comments, concerns, hopefully not angry letters, our email address is projectcities@asu.edu. And keep an eye, students, on the Canvas courses where we're going to put all the information for your site visits that are coming up. And man, I just can't wait to see you all in our next couple months here. Thank you, everyone. Any closing comments from the City of Peoria? Welcome to take the last word.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, great event.
Thank you all.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Y'all take care, and we'll get a recording of this put together and up on the Canvas site.